At 73 years old, George Strait is making big news once again. But this time it's not because he sold out a concert tour, had another popular song, or won another trophy. This time it is for something much sadder. And it doesn't just affect George Strait by himself, but the whole country of America. So, what is this George Strait news that is making all the headlines? Stay with us because this story will touch your heart. It looks like George Strait is planning to stop performing music forever. When George Strait told everyone he was done touring in 2014, fans were really upset by the news. But after many years of singing and going on tours, George Strait deserves to take a break. His body just wasn't as strong as it used to be. But George didn't plan to stop making records, albums, and even singing on stage, at least not right away. However, he has dropped hints about when he might stop making music for good. In the middle of 2025, George Strait made headlines when he had an honest talk with his fans in Philadelphia. He told them that he had been performing for 50 years and he loved every single moment of his shows. He loved seeing his fans smile, and that happiness pushed him to always do his best. But George has given a little bit too much. Then came the announcement that made huge headlines everywhere. Sadly, he told his fans that he didn't have many years left to spend with them. He said that in 5 years from now he might have to stop singing for good, but he would never forget his fans. So by 78 or at the oldest 80, George Strait would be saying goodbye. But before that happens, fans still have plenty of George Strait to enjoy. In 2024, he put out a new album called Cowboys and Dreamers. Before that album in 2023, he started doing one big stadium show each summer and has even been scheduled through 2026. George always showed up for his scheduled concerts. In the middle of 2024, George performed at Kyle Field in College Station, Texas. Fans were super excited for the concert and they kept on buying tickets. But even at that moment, they didn't know what they had done for George's place in history. Despite being older, George was still amazing to watch. His strong voice filled the stadium, and he entertained a crowd of over 110,000 people. With that show, George made the news again. His concert became the biggest ticketed concert for one performer in United States history. However, young musician Zach Bryan did the impossible and broke the record in 2025. Still, this doesn't take anything away from George Strait. He still remains a legend that no one can deny, and in 2024, he was added to the Hollywood Walk of Fame for its class of 2025. George kept performing according to his stage schedule. He performed in Gillette Stadium on June 21, 2025, and was already set to perform at the Las Vegas HBCU Classic in October. His next show should have been in 2026, but on September 10, 2025, things changed and George made headlines because of it. Charlie Kirk, an American right-wing political activist, business owner, and media personality, was shot and killed. Charlie was one of the loudest voices in the MAGA movement inside the Republican Party and one of the young leaders. In 2012, he helped create the conservative organization Turning Point USA and was its executive director. Charlie used the organization to get into debates with college students to change their minds and win people over to the Republican Party. However, not many people liked what Charlie did. Some called him a racist bigot and said he was trying to divide people. They also said he twisted statistics during his debates. Threats came pouring in for Charlie, but he ignored them and believed in what he was doing, even if it meant he would make many enemies. On September 10, 2025, Charlie was at one of his debates and was talking to people at Utah Valley University about mass shootings. Then suddenly gunshots fired in the air and a bullet went through Charlie's neck. Charlie's neck sprayed blood everywhere as the event turned into complete chaos. Charlie was rushed to the hospital right away, but sadly, despite the doctors doing everything they could, he died. It turned out that one of those who hated Charlie for his debating work was behind the killing. However, people thought there was much more, that there was a bigger, darker political plan at play. Some people celebrated Charlie's death. They said he deserved it because they felt he divided people and was bigoted. Many others felt that it was disgusting to cheer for Charlie's death. Which side do you agree with? Despite the different opinions that came up, America fell into mourning. Tributes kept coming in from some of the most powerful people in the world. But on the day of Charlie's funeral, one tribute stood out. At 73, most men would have every reason to rest, to walk away from the stage and spend their days in quiet thinking. And George Strait, He's earned that peace 1,000 times over. But like most of America, George felt the sadness of Charlie's death. That death sparked something in George. It reminded him of a loss that almost destroyed him, a loss he still struggled with. So to show that grief and to show Charlie's family that he knew what they were going through, George Strait did what he knew how to do best. He began to write a song for Charlie. Unlike some musicians who made money off of other people's grief, George didn't release this song. He waited for Charlie's funeral and stepped onto the stage. George picked up his guitar, but it wasn't him that sang. It was his sadness, and it was powerful. The sorrow in his voice filled the venue and touched the hearts of the 90,000 mourners in the place. They stayed frozen. Their eyes were wet with tears as George's grief mixed with theirs. What they were listening to wasn't music, but a beautiful farewell song wrapped in the feeling of a sadness that won't go away anytime soon. George's song became a bridge between silence and remembering. For families who didn't know how to put their feelings into words, George's song carried the weight for them. For strangers across the nation who felt the empty space Charlie left behind, George's sad song became proof that a person's legacy doesn't really die. But that's not all. Most importantly, George reminded us that mourning isn't weakness, it's human. That even the strongest among us, even legends who seem untouchable, can be broken and still stand tall enough to comfort others. The journey towards healing had begun, and George had helped it along the way. However, what about George himself? Will he be okay? George is not a stranger to tragedy, and there was one which shaped his career, even if he didn't really talk to people about it. George is the type of person that doesn't talk much. He has a calm, controlled style, and he appears to be in control all the time. With his fame, you would expect him to be flashy and call attention to himself. However, George doesn't want to be loudest or the most attention-grabbing. He doesn't want to be involved in drama. What he wants is to love his family, make good music, and love his fans. So George lets the music speak for him, and that music has made him such an unforgettable man. He doesn't see his fame as permission to talk about private things. He always kept his cards close to his chest and his secrets buried in his heart. Today, the family of 4 lives in a beautiful 5-bedroom home in Fairfax, Virginia, which they purchased in 2023 for $1.68 million. The location is a perfect 40-minute drive from the White House, where Peter spends his days as one of the most recognized correspondents in the country. The true story of their family life is not one of sickness and struggle, but one of incredible strength. Hillary Vaughn, the woman rumored to be sidelined by a tragic illness, was in reality a powerhouse, a dedicated journalist who reported from the heart of American politics just hours before welcoming both of her children into the world. Her resilience is the real headline, a powerful truth that got lost in a sea of false rumors. But how did her husband become such a lightning rod for public attention in the first place? He is a member of a Fox News dynasty and one of the most visible and confrontational journalists in Washington, D.C. He is the eldest child of Steve Doocy, the longtime co-host of the popular morning show Fox and Friends. Growing up, Peter was surrounded by the world of television news. But his parents actually hoped he would choose a different path, perhaps business or law. But the pull of journalism was too strong. After graduating from Villanova University in 2009 with a degree in political science, he was immediately hired by Fox News, the same network where his father had become a household name. Even in college, he was already contributing to the network as a reporter for a program called FoxNews.com. From the very beginning, his father acted as his coach just as he had years earlier for Peter's middle school baseball team. Steve even volunteered to coach the team just to make sure Peter, who was on a very competitive team, would get a chance to play. In the early days of Peter's reporting career, Steve would watch every report, holding his breath for the entire 2 minutes, terrified his son would make a mistake on live TV. Afterward, Peter would call him and ask for an honest review, and Steve would give him advice, sharing the mistakes he had made so Peter could avoid them. Peter quickly carved out his own identity. He wasn't just Steve Doocy's son. He was a sharp and relentless reporter who was not afraid to ask the tough questions. His career took him to New York and Chicago before he landed in Washington, D.C. in 2010. He covered some of the biggest stories in the country, including the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, the Boston Marathon bombing, and the manhunt for 2 escaped prisoners in Dannemora, New York. In 2014, he landed a massive exclusive, the first television interview with Robert O'Neill, the Navy SEAL who claims to have fired the shot that killed Osama bin Laden. The documentary, titled The Man Who Killed Osama bin Laden, had the highest ratings of any documentary in Fox News history at the time. But it was when he became a White House correspondent in 2021 that his star truly began to rise. He became known for his persistent and often combative questioning style during White House press briefings. His daily exchanges with press secretaries, first Jen Psaki and then Karine Jean-Pierre, became must-see TV. These verbal sparring matches often went viral, featuring tense but sometimes playful back-and-forths over the administration's policies. His relentless approach led to several unforgettable moments. In January 2022, President Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic calling him a "stupid son of a bitch" after Peter shouted a question about inflation. The president later called Peter personally to clear the air, a moment that showed the unique relationship between the two. Ducey's time at the White House has been so eventful that even nature seems to have taken notice. During one live report from the White House lawn, a bird swooped down, landed on his head, and then dive-bombed him before flying away, all on live television. It is this high-profile, confrontational role that makes him a constant topic of conversation. He is a central character in the daily drama of American politics, which is why the public is so fascinated by his personal life. His professional identity as the reporter who never backs down made him the perfect target for rumors because his life, both public and private, is always under a microscope. This brings us to the final, most confusing rumor of all. The real cancer nightmare that rocked the Ducey family didn't belong to Hillary Vaughn. It belonged to Peter's mother, Kathy Garrity, the wife of Fox News anchor Steve Ducey. Her journey was a terrifying ordeal that began in the most ordinary way possible. Around 2015, Kathy and Steve went to their eye doctor for a routine exam to get new prescriptions for sunglasses. During the checkup, the doctor noticed something unusual, a small freckle on the back of Kathy's eye. He said it was probably nothing to worry about, but asked her to come back in a few months for a follow-up just to be safe. When they returned for the second exam, the mood changed instantly. The doctor took one look and knew something was wrong. He immediately referred them to a specialist who then urged them to go to one of the best eye hospitals in the country, Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia. A massive blizzard was shutting down the entire New York area, but that didn't stop them. At 5 in the morning, Steve and Kathy were driving on a snow-covered highway filled with a sense of dread. After a full day of tests, a top eye doctor named Carol Shields delivered the devastating news. She looked at them and said, "Kathy, you have eye cancer." The diagnosis was ocular melanoma, a very rare and deadly form of cancer.